so nice to see so many familiar faces. Thank you for the warm welcome that Lori received. And thank you for the fellowship that we'll enjoy in the midst of this worship experience, but also as we enjoy fellowship following church. So many, many thanks to all of you, and it's great. It's good to see so many people. And I need to go ahead and offer up also, it's great to see so many familiar faces, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say it's also great to see so many people that I don't recognize. Because that says a lot about health, that says a lot about vitality, that says a lot about part of our baptismal vows, which are to welcome new people into the fold, and to like I always say, it shows when there's new people, it shows that those who came first were willing to scooch over the pew and make room for somebody else. And that's such an important part of how we live out our Christian faith, is by making room for new folks and telling them the story of salvation, certainly, but the stories of our community of faith, and the stories of how Jesus speaks to us, and how Jesus calls us, and how God has formed us to go forth and to do His work in the world. So I commend you for that. But also, I commend you for the celebration that we have today, the celebration which is embedded in the Eucharist and within the confirmation. Confirmation is the bringing in of new people into the fold formally as they stand in front of the altar and say, "Here I am, Lord. Here I am," and confirm their baptismal promises. Because that's what confirmation is. It's sometimes we wonder, what does that word mean? Just boil it down really simply. It is confirming. I should also say, confirmation is not just job security for a bishop, because a bishop is do it. But the confirmation is about confirming the baptismal promises that were made, in many cases, years earlier. And in the cases of anyone who was baptized when they were an infant, it's confirming promises that were made on their behalf. And so there are promises that often they were not able to say, "I will," with God's help to. Someone else did that for them. So that's what confirmation is that moment when we as individuals step up, stand in front of the altar, and say, "I will, I do, and here I am, Lord, send me." So to the new confirmands, welcome. And to all of you, well done. Because that shows that you created a place where they could feel welcome. You created a place where they could feel like they could nurture their own faith. And you created a place where they were able to feel that the Spirit of God was in your midst. So, again, welcome. And congratulations and well done. I don't think I'm battling with the Saints today, because I think they play tonight. So I know that nobody's going to be leaving after communion and sure try to get down to the Superdome in time. But although I do remember when I was here as your rector, that if I continued processing out after the service, because that was usually about 11-ish, 11:10-ish, depending on how long I preached. But if I kept on going straight out the doors and just said goodbye at the piece rather than at the end of the service, that I could usually get down to the Superdome right about kickoff time. But I think they're playing tonight, so we're good. We're all good. This gospel that we just heard is important and also sometimes kind of confusing. Sometimes kind of confusing because it's not always clear what we're supposed to take from that. And so let me just kind of jump in a little bit with it and say, first of all, remember Jesus is doing the speaking. Jesus is telling the story. It says Jesus said. And then he talks about basically the rich man, okay? And he describes how rich this guy is, okay? And so all these descriptors in there are really important. For example, the purple part, when he talks about more purple and feasted sumptuously, that's meant to, in all likelihood, connect him to royalty. Purple is a color that's often been associated with royalty. But in that first century world, purple also represented a color that you would dye a fabric that was really difficult to come by. The materials to dye that fabric were really hard to come by, and they were extremely expensive. And so you can imagine the traders in that first century world were pulling down some pretty significant profits when they showed up with the fabric that was already dyed purple, or with the dye that it took to make something purple. So that tells you a lot about this guy. I mean, in casino terms, this guy's a whale. Okay, he's a heavy hitter, and so that's what we're talking about here. This guy never really had to worry about a whole lot. Now, Lazarus, and this is a different Lazarus than the Lazarus that we've come to know in the other gospel stories. Okay, in all likelihood, this is a different person altogether. But this Lazarus has been living at the gates to a significant mansion for a while. He's been homeless, if you will. He's been ill, because we know that they use that horrible description of the dogs licking his sores. So we know that he's been sick. We know that he's been homeless, and we know that he has been living outside of this guy's house in all likelihood. Okay. Now, again, keep in mind this is Jesus telling a parable, telling a story. So he's using all the available means of persuasion to tell this story. So whether this is whether he's actually talking about Mr. Smith from the other side of town, we don't know about that. But what he's using the object lesson, if you will. So Lazarus is there, and now this fella has passed away. And Lazarus has passed away. And Lazarus is in, to use sitcoms, he's in the good place. Okay? But our rich man is not in a good place. And he is perhaps somewhat accepting of that fact, because what he's really angling for is like, if Lazarus can just stick his finger in water to cool my lips a little bit, that'd be okay. So I'll say, or he can just go tell my brothers, so to give them the heads up that, hey, you repent now, or else, that sort of thing. So we know that this whole thing is going on and all this, but really what Jesus is trying to, what I take from this, that Jesus is trying to impart upon everyone there is like, hey, I sent you prophets, or Abraham, like is the character he's using. I sent you prophets. I sent you others to tell the message, and you didn't listen. You didn't listen. You failed to pay attention. So what makes you think that anyone else coming back from the dead is going to make a difference? That we should be looking for the many ways that God speaks to us in our lives, and we should be making the necessary changes, amends, whatever the case may be. We shouldn't have to go to these extreme situations in order to do that. So it reminds me, and I know that I've used this story with you all years gone by in a sermon, but I'm going to use it again. And it's difficult because you all have a history with water rising. But there was this guy, and he was a devout Christian, and he was living in a house on high enough hill, and the water from the river was rising. And saw the river rising and heard the evacuate orders and all that kind of stuff, and got down on his knees and prayed, Lord, save me, that kind of thing. And so he continued to pray, and he believed that his prayers were going to make a big difference. then the water continued to rise, and Joe was in his house, and he was on the second floor, and the water's still rising, and he's still praying, and he's like looking out a balcony on the top floor, and all of a sudden there's a helicopter there, and there's a bullhorn, and the mercy, sir, we're going to throw the ladder down, grab hold, we'll get you out of here. And he said, no, God's got me, I'm okay. And so he wouldn't get on the ladder to get on the helicopter, so he stayed on the side. And then all of a sudden he's climbing up on the roof because the water's still rising, and he's holding on to the top of the roof as the water's coming up, and he looks up to the heavens, he said, Lord, I believed, and I felt like you telling me that everything was going to be okay, that I was going to be all right. And then a voice from heaven opened up and shouted down at him, I sent you a truck, a motorboat, and a helicopter. What more did you want? God is sending us prophets. God has sent us a Savior. God has sent us ministers. God has sent others sharing the good news. And we need to listen for that good news in the words of our brothers and sisters, whether they be crazy folks like me that wear a collar around their neck, or whether it be the person that you run into in the supermarket or otherwise. God's people are sharing a message of love, of hope, of inclusion, and God's people are continually reminding us to not miss the Lazaruses of the world, to not miss the folks who are without, to not miss the opportunities to scooch over the pews, to not miss the many ways that we can make a difference in the world at large. About done. I promise I'm going to bring this in for a landing in a second. Lift up your hearts. I'm going to say that in a couple of minutes from behind the altar, and we're going to respond by saying we lift them up to the Lord. Lift up your hearts is that moment when we connect within our worship service to God. It's when we offer to God who we are, what we are, and what we can do. And it's one of the ways that we find unity as God's people. Because remember, that starts our Eucharistic prayer, our prayer of thanksgiving. That starts that prayer in that moment when we ask God to come be a part of our worship experience, and we step forward in this holy place to be filled up to go to do His work in the world. But we lift up our hearts. I suspect there's lots of ways that this community of faith lifts up its hearts on a regular basis and offers to God service, gratitude, thanksgiving, and worship. I suspect there's many ways that you are connecting with God and creating unity with your brothers and sisters in order to make sure that we see that person that is on the side of the road, that invisible person that's in our midst. And that invisible person isn't always the homeless person laying at the gates. Sometimes it's our brother or sister next door who's lonely. Sometimes it's the co-worker who's recently lost a loved one. Sometimes it's the person